DISQO's here, and they're going to be doing the dance for us today. And doing the dance is Ann Hunter. I'm sure she's dying. She's going to be beaming in here. Ann is beaming in from the far reaches of the universe. Ann, VP of Product over at DISQO. VP of Product Marketing at DISQO. Ann, are you there, first of all? This usually takes a second.
I am here. I was just listening to the music.
Very good. Very good. What kind of music?
DISQO, of course.
Of course. Of course. Well, we're thrilled you're here. Sorry you can't be physically here, but we're glad you're beaming in. We're looking forward to your session. It's unboxing your audience with zero-party data. Is that correct?
That is it.
All right. Well, it looks like your presentation is loaded up. I think you're, in presentation mode. Looks great. The next 10 minutes is yours. You got a room full of excited people, and hopefully they'll be dancing, standing and dancing when you're done.
Let's make that happen.
All right. Take it away, my dear.
All right. Thank you so much. We are not going to be having any big events right now where we're going to be doing winning $1 million, but we're hoping that we can help give you the metrics you need to drive those millions of dollars in your brands. You heard in the last presentation that ultimately tying it back to metrics is important, and that's what DISQO does for CPG brands. So give you a little bit of background on the issue. CPG brands are really at a crossroads when it comes to metrics. The traditional measures, particularly digital measures, are being completely eroded. Whether it's cookies, mobile IDs, even IP addresses, all of those things that sort of connected people to outcomes are undergoing a massive change. And you've heard about this in every single conference and every single newsletter that you've seen over the past year. So you understand already the complexity of what's happening with brands. Those tidal forces are causing there to be crazy gymnastics to try to figure out whether advertising is actually working. There's all sorts of things that are trying to replace cookies. There's a whole bunch of silos in all of the measurement. Campaigns launch and you get 14 different reports. And brand and sales impact is becoming increasingly difficult to measure. Our concern is that brand building is really going to be impacted by the current of these changes. When the only way to look at the impact of advertising is whether someone clicked on an ad and went directly to your website, you lose the ability to understand all of the great brand impacts that advertising drives. We know that people actually are primed and hopefully have positive experiences with brands, but losing the ability to understand consumers more holistically and just having the ability to look at, the last click that they did makes optimization of media, makes the view of the consumer journey very limited to promotional activities, and that brand building impact gets impacted. This is really borne out by research. Many of you be familiar with Binet and Field's research on the long and short of it. And Les Binet said that brand building is the main driver of long-term brand preference, sales growth, revenue, and profits. And I think we just saw a great example of that in the previous presentation with Pepsi, that ultimately it's that emotional connection that's important for brands. So how, as a brand marketer, do you go about making sure that advertising is optimized to develop that brand preference and to develop the consideration and brand love that you want when the measures to do that are massively eroding right now? And what is available is very much promotional in nature. We think that there's really 3 paths forward that brands can take. They can try to go around consumers' desires not to have everything tracked and try to come up with really pervasive ways of getting all this information, right? Replicate those cookies with some really pervasive identifiers. They can kind of give up. And there's actually been some research that brands are sort of saying, well, I guess I'm going to go back to sort of direct response style measurement when it comes to digital, looking at last click, looking at, just Did someone like the brand? Going back to these sort of very DR promotional metrics when understanding brand impact. Or they can take a third approach, and that is a zero-party data approach. And for most people, zero-party data is a new concept. So it was coined by Forrester. And what is zero-party data? It's data that a customer intentionally and proactively shares with a brand. Now, this doesn't just mean that they are trackable by a brand. It means that they intentionally want you to have it, that they volunteer it, and in DISQO's view, that they get value back. We have to understand that some people are not interested in sharing, and that's okay. They can still buy products, that's great, but they don't necessarily want to be involved in, the measurement of a campaign. That's okay. We need to respect the consumer. So with zero-party data, we're only using data that a consumer has intentionally and proactively shared. The good news is when we get their consent to actually engage with them in measurement, a whole lot of really cool stuff opens up. So DISQO uses zero-party data, and we have an audience, 100% of which have fully opted in to measurement, and we give them value. They have the opportunity to get gift cards and other things in exchange for their data. So they know that they're participating in this. They understand that how their data is being used. And then we have the ability to collect their opinions through surveys and look at all of the things that they do online, their complete passive digital measurement. Now there's an audience of people where you have the ability to look at those brand and demand measures holistically. And that opens up a lot for marketers. So with that audience platform, we can do market research, understand what brands are doing, how people are engaging online. We can do ad measurement research. And we actually have companies building their own solutions, their own insights and measurement off of the DISQO zero-party platform, because it's all consented consumers who are open and willing to share. Ultimately, this means that you can trust the decision-making that's coming from these insights, right? It's not aggregated from multiple sources. You're not getting fraud. You're not getting, random bots. These are real people. We're giving them gift cards. We're checking to make sure they're real people because we're giving them gift cards. So we don't want to be giving it away to a bot. It levels the playing field, right? We don't allow data to come from all these different sources. You don't have, these siloed platforms saying, oh, here's how well my campaign performed, and they're grading their own homework. This is the ability to actually see everything on an equal footing. And it's ethical. It allows brands to really make that choice that in the same way that they're thinking about sustainability in sourcing ingredients, the same way they're thinking about ethically sourcing packaging, it also allows brands to make ethical choices in sourcing their consumer research. And great news is you get a whole lot more information too. So we can collect consumer sentiment data through surveys, their attitudes, understand brand favorability, equity, preference, purchase intent. And then we can see if that actually happens in real life. Do they actually visit the site? Do they actually search for the brand? What is the share of voice in search? What's going on with the competition? Competition's not going to give you their data, but we see everything. So we have their data. So you can understand how your brand is impacting the competitor. We can look at review sites and get down into e-commerce. So now you have consent and you have way more data. This means that you can look at things like share of voice, share of search in the big search engines, but also understand how your brand is working at e-commerce, whether that's traditional grocery retailers like an Albertson or Kroger, whether it's the big box retailers, Target, Walmart, or the digital first retailers, Amazon, Instacart. You have the ability, and hi, I know some of you guys are there in the audience, and excited to be able to share this opportunity to see all of the behavior that consumers are doing digitally, whether that's seeing an ad, or whether that's actually doing digital shopping. With this, you can also increase the quality and impact of your ad measurement. Traditionally, exposed control, you're doing a brand lift study, gets matched on, on gender, gets matched on age, gets matched on income. Exposed and control, yeah, they're all pretty close. Great. Run some studies, find out if my ad campaign's working. When you have the entirety of people's experience, you can match on gender, age, income, but also whether they're a dog owner. Are they the primary purchaser? Do they purchase once a month? Do they buy dog food in a dry format or wet format? You can go much deeper into really developing true experiments that prove the impact of your ad initiatives. So this is an example from a recent CPG brand that worked with us, and they wanted to understand the effectiveness of their digital advertising. But when they only had sort of last click, limited cookies, 15 identifiers from a whole bunch of different places, multiple reports from silos, they had a lot of blind spots. So we worked with them and helped them measure the full impact of the campaign. Traditionally, they'd collect about 500 surveys, like we can do 2,000 surveys. They were getting, 1,100 or so clicks on the ads. We saw 35,000 activities, way more than just the clicks on the ads. We saw the search, we saw the site visitation, we saw them searching for the brand on Amazon, searching for the brand on Instacart. On average, we saw after the advertising ran 3.9 activities for the brand per person. When it was just click-based measurement, just looking at digital using traditional methods, it looked like the campaign just didn't generate any activity afterwards. But we actually are able to look at the overall brand impact, which doesn't always happen, because of a click or a cookie, and see that there's a whole lot going on. This advertising's working. And so the brand used to think that their campaigns just had a 0.06% of the people really engaged with them. We're saying, no, almost 5% of people are definitively engaging with your business because of your ad campaigns. Really massively more data to work with for optimization, but more data to take back to the CFO and say, our campaigns are working and we can now show you why. So fundamentally, our premise is if you start by giving people value, you can get full funnel, total path to purchase insights in return. And if you have any questions, if we have time, we can answer. If not, hello@disco.com. Happy to talk further.
All right. Thank you so much, Anne. That was great.